Alright guys, welcome back to day 47, the last day, day 0. So I'm going to pick up where I left off yesterday in summarizing the back half of what I just talked about in the past 40 something days up until this point, and I'll share a little bit of something that I haven't revealed up to now at the end. So without further ado, I'm going to pick up where I left off yesterday, which was this 22nd day. 22nd day is when Chrissy comes back from Georgia, and how we take a walk and we start talking about what we really see for each other in the future, because I had started to worry about I had started to worry about where our relationship was going by then, and because of her being gone had made me a little bit uneasy and a little bit kind of scared, concerned for what was going to happen, if that's how I felt now. But we kind of tried to reassure each other, I guess, at the end. And the vlog after that is when I find out a little bit inadvertently that Chrissy had introduced me to one of my future favorite authors, I guess you could say. She had introduced me to John Green, and she had a book back then called An Abundance of Catherines, and how that I didn't really think about it at first because I had read a little bit of it back then and I thought that was kind of cool, but it really shaped me up in the future to read A Fault in Our Stars a couple of months ago, and how that turned into one of my favorite books, and how he turned into one of my favorite authors, and John Green, and how even after we both moved on, how she still affects me in my everyday life. The vlog after that is when I talk about a little bit of stereotypes, and how Chrissy, the girl that I knew in high school, and this girl that I like right now, all three share kind of a common trait, aside from me liking all three of them. How they all had brunette hair, how they all were of Italian heritage, and they all were of Catholic faith, and how that's definitely stereotypical, but they did all share that common trait. Now that was kind of weird. The next vlog after that is when I go back in time and I talk about New Year's of that year, of 2010, and how Chrissy had shot me a text that said HNY, and how I realized that maybe we were starting to fall a little bit out of love, because we just really didn't have anything intimate anymore, I guess you could say, even our text. The vlog after that is when I talk about a day that I go with Chrissy and her friends drinking, and how that night goes crazy. We drink a lot, and how that night basically ended up me and Chrissy in her bedroom, and how we did something that kind of rhymes with hex. The vlog after that is when I talk about the day that Chrissy told me that her family was coming to visit her, and how she told me the day before they were coming, which kind of bothered me. Not so much that they were coming, it's just the fact that she told me right before they were, and how she had kept it a secret from me, even though she knew about it since she came back from Georgia. The next two vlogs after that is me talking about the day that my dad died in 2010, and how I was very vulnerable at that time, and how I was really sad, and how when I really needed her the most, that Chrissy wasn't there because her family was in town, but mostly because of a guy called Robert that I'll talk about in just a little bit. And I was definitely really sad that not only could she not make the wake, she didn't even come to the funeral itself. The vlog after that is when I talk about the aftermath, and how I was definitely disappointed in Chrissy, and how she tried to apologize and tried to say that basically she couldn't come because she had to watch over her dad and Robert because they were drunk out of their minds. Robert being, I explained about who Robert is, Robert being Chrissy's family friend, and how he was the one that gave Chrissy her first kiss back in the day. How she told me that a long time ago, how I just instantly didn't like him, which I'll talk about in a little bit again. Which the next vlog is a little bit more about Robert, and how I just really couldn't shake the fact that Robert seemed to be more than just her first kiss, because they seemed a little too chummy, even for a family friend, and how basically Chrissy revealed that she had actually had a relationship with Robert, how they had dated for a while, and they had almost gotten engaged actually before she moved out. He's the reason she moved out here, and how that kind of bothered me, how our entire first fight was me keeping a secret from her, and how she turned that around and kept a secret from me all this time. And how that really started to become the beginning of the end for our relationship. The vlog after that is when I talk about how all that information that I just found out, how Chrissy's big secret had just really affected me to the point where I just really couldn't take it, and how I drove into madness, and I almost did something that I would have definitely deeply regretted, and harming myself, and how Chrissy really stopped me. But in the next vlog I revealed that even though she helped me stop doing something I would have regretted, that we still took a break because I felt that there was just too much bad blood between us, how all these secrets and all these things that we were keeping from each other just wasn't going to work, how we needed to take a break, and how that really bothered me. The vlog after that is when I talk about hypothetical, and how I think about what would have happened if Chrissy and I hadn't kept all these secrets from each other, and how maybe we could have been, together even up to today. The vlog after that is when I go back and talk about this petty argument that turned into a big one, in the sense that we were talking about how we were watching a movie, and eventually I basically say that I found a certain actress kind of attractive, but she didn't, and how that little petty argument started to turn into something bigger when we brought in the past into the argument, and how it just really started to show that we really weren't going to be able to keep on through this. The next vlog after that is when I find out that Chrissy had a letter from Robert. Him and her family having left by this point, but he had left her a letter saying, I'm sorry about my nose, saying that he wanted her to move back, and how he still was in love with her, and how I thought that was really stupid, because he couldn't even say that to my face, and how I was just really kind of mad that he would do that. The next vlog is when I talk about the last time me and Chrissy really had, really had our last glee, when the last time we were really happy with each other, and how those days were definitely coming to a close by then. The next vlog after that is when I talk about our 1-year anniversary that me and Chrissy were celebrating, even though we weren't really that technically together again. We were still pretty chummy, we were still trying to get back together, but we celebrated that 1-year anniversary, but eventually I found out that Chrissy had taken Robert's letter to heart a lot more than I thought she would, and she really wanted to go back to Georgia, and how that definitely led to the last fight that we had really had. The next vlog after that is when I talk about Robert a little bit more in detail again, and how back then, and even for the longest time, I really didn't like the guy, how I thought he was just a little prick, but how I think about in 2014, and how he wasn't as bad as I thought, because I could really compare myself to him to my high school self when I had fallen in love with this other girl, and how he was just trying to do what he thought was right. The next vlog after that is when I talk about how really the entirety of Chrissy and I's relationship had definitely taken a toll in my spiritual side, in the sense that when we were together, that we were really both strong in our faiths, but after we had broken up, and definitely in the last 4 years since we've broken up, my faith is really in religion has really kind of waned, and how that's really more of a result of me thinking about all of the stuff that happened between me and Chrissy, and how it held bad memories, and how that's kind of why I don't really like going to church in the present day. The vlog after that is when I finally figure out from Rios that I really needed to do something to try to keep Chrissy from moving back to Georgia, and how we formulated a plan. The vlog after that talking about the actual time where we really did try to stop Chrissy from moving, and how both Rios and I did everything we could to stop her from moving, but we couldn't. And the vlog after that is when I talk about the last day that I had together with Chrissy, how I said my goodbye, and how I said that even though Chrissy broke up with me and was moving because of me, how she was moving because there was too many memories back here, especially me, that she didn't want to that she didn't want to have to remember anymore. How despite all that, that I would still be here for her if she ever needed me, basically. And then the last 2 days up until yesterday is just me reflecting on how the time me and Chrissy had together, how had definitely helped boost my confidence, definitely, and how just me talking about these experiences with Chrissy has definitely given me a form of therapy that I can't recreate and have. It's definitely just basically made me a better person in general, and that is everything I talk about. So the last thing I want to talk about, since I have a little bit of time, is the last little bit of information that I had held off until today. If you've ever heard me talk about, whenever you hear me talk about Chrissy, if you watch the past vlogs, I usually talk about her in the past tense. Sorry about that. Oof. Past tense. And there's definitely a reason for that. It's not because that we just, I haven't talked to her in 4 years now. It's the fact that about a year after Chrissy moved back to Georgia, I had gotten a call from her parents that Chrissy was hit by a drunk driver and that she didn't make it, and how that definitely tore me up inside. How the reason I'm talking about this now and I'm revealing it is because there's a reason why I wanted to keep the idea of Chrissy in a more positive light and not negative. That's why I keep saying that I never want to talk down about her, never want to show her bad sides, because not just because of what happened, but it's just I remember when I first heard the news that she was gone, that I was definitely hurt, that that I really was pretty much devastated that when I found out that she was gone. But another reason I want to talk about this before I wrap everything up is because it's really given me another reason. It was the reason why I started these vlogs. It's something I didn't want to talk about until now. The reason I wanted to start these vlogs is because I wanted to honor her memory, and how I talked about how she really liked the idea of YouTube, but she never wanted to do it herself. I like to think of me doing these vlogs as my way of trying to honor our time together, and trying to make it so that at least a little piece of her is on the the web, on YouTube, on somewhere else. And it's definitely, it makes a lot more sense now, it should, of why I always try to speak of her in a higher light than you really think I would have, considering that our relationship ended badly. Because by the day that I found out that Chrissy was gone, everything that I held negatively between us really went out the window, and it just made me really cherish all our moments together, and made me kind of wish that I had been able to say goodbye, even though I can't. And that's probably the last thing I'll say in this. Definitely, I thank you for everything. Everyone that's watched this, I'm sorry. I mean, everyone that's watched this, I thank you again. If you've watched all of these vlogs, definitely that's cool. If you haven't, that's fine too. But yeah, thanks for watching again. See ya sometime.